Welcome to all of our friends out there in High Five Live Land.
We are so grateful that you're joining us today. And as you do, please let us know what part of the world you're joining from and make any comments and ask any questions of our guests today. We're so grateful to have them here with us.
In fact, they're broadcasting from Africa. How exciting is that?
Yes, and it's a miracle, isn't it, that we can do this? So we are with some members of the Type of Wood charity team today, and we have actually interviewed Rob Sturgill and some of his other team members, and that's back on High Five Live on March 25th. And so you're welcome to go watch that, and we'll get an update today of what they talked about then. Let us just tell you a little bit about these guys, and I don't even know how I'll hold it together. I cannot believe the service that these men give. They are quite a team and so willing to just risk their lives to help others. And so Rob Sturgill, he is from Twin Falls, and he's a father and a husband and founder of the Type of Woods Charities in 2014. You can find him at typeofwood.org. He's director for Rise and Rebuild Foundation, and that's riseandrebuild.org. And they do projects in Ukraine, Africa, and the Philippines. And that's why they're in Africa today working on a project, and we'll hear about that. Then we have Gary Wave. He's a general contractor from Twin Falls and father to 3 daughters and 12 grandchildren.
Congratulations. Being a grandpa is pretty cool.
It's the best. So David Sturgill is from Twin Falls, Idaho, and he graduated from BYU. He's an attorney in Utah County, Utah. And he has 4 kids. His oldest just graduated from the U of U, University of Utah. The next 2 are attending Utah Valley University, where my husband taught for
21
years. And Utah State, and the youngest is in high school. Thanks for being with us, David. Wave. There you are. And we have, let's see. Yeah, okay. Then we have Jeremy Cowdrey. He's a husband, father of 3, and a traveler. He resides in Lehi, Utah, next to us, and is a former CEO of an education tech company. And now he's an advisor for investors on business opportunities. He's passionate about education, conservation, and humanitarian issues, obviously. Thanks to these 4 for being with us today.
So they've all served in Ukraine, and now they're serving in Africa. And last time we talked to Rob, we had a chance to be in Poland, and some of his team was in Ukraine. And we thought maybe we'd start with a little update. Let's see his family first, maybe. And
yeah, so all of these men left beautiful families to come and serve. And this is Rob Sturgill's family. Look at them. And a missionary. Is your missionary still out, Rob?
He is. He's still in Warsaw, Poland, actually serving in Warsaw.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow, that is incredible. Wow. Okay, so as we begin, what would you like to tell us about, just an update on Ukraine and your work there and what you were doing and keep doing. It's ongoing.
I think the last time we talked, we were just actually boots on the ground, getting networks built up. We were working with Solomon, with Backroads Foundation, had built up a lot of good relationships with the local volunteers. I came back and actually went and met with the Slavic church up in Boise, Idaho, who I had established a relationship with. And they put me in contact with the Grace Evangelical Church out in Ohio. And through them, we started facilitating our efforts of getting supplies sent over from the United States via air cargo and shipping, and getting sent over to Ukraine. So a lot of food and medical supplies getting sent over.
You mean a lot.
Yeah.
We're talking hundreds of tons. So we're talking warehouses that were filled in Ohio, were then shipped over and sent over to the warehouse in Ukraine. And then we've got delivery vehicles that come in each day and take the food and medical supplies out to the front lines in Ukraine. So it's we got to the point where there are quite a few supplies coming from the United States, and not enough semi trucks to haul them down to Ukraine. So we ended up about 4 weeks ago purchasing a semi truck, and have that now facilitating taking those supplies, food and medical supplies, from the port in Poland, gets driven down to that warehouse in Ukraine. So we just continue to support the efforts there the best we can by getting food and medical supplies to those front lines.
It's amazing. Oh, thank you so much for
And
all
when we're
of that
talking
work.
about, I mean, this is over 40,000 miles, and that was back in June or July, right? You're traveling. I mean, it's a long drive and lots of it, and so many trips.
Okay, we're going to try quickly to just share this video. We'll see if it will work. Give it a try. Yeah.
While you're doing that, we can share Dave. Well, we'll see if this comes up. There it is.
Can you see it? Wow.
So what else would you like to share about that? And just let's hear from each of you.
Well, so this is Jeremy, and my experience was a last second call from Rob and an opportunity to go over. This was very early on in the conflict, and I think it was maybe 2 weeks after the war had started. And it was right as we went over, we entered a country where we knew that there were some transportation needs of getting the refugees away from the border, but we didn't know much more than that. And quickly, we felt inspired to do different things, whether it be buying suitcases for people that were carrying a plastic bag with their whole life belongings. We saw that, these were women and children and elderly that were fleeing, leaving their husbands behind and sons and fathers. It was heartbreaking, but at the same time, for me, it was one of those things that, I was there just over 2 weeks, and it felt like I was serving a mission, a 2-year mission within 2 weeks, and the opportunity to see families put a smile back on their face, because the opportunity was for us to be able to calm a little bit of their concern and put them in a place of comfort. Many of these mothers had been in bomb shelters for a week before they got to the border and hadn't showered, and we were able to transport them to hotels and places that then could help them find their place. And one small story that I remember is a family of a mother who had actually returned to go get her family while 5 months pregnant, getting her 4 children, traveling through the war zone by herself, crossing the border, needing help. And she was remarried and had a family in Israel that she needed to get to. And through a long period of time, we were able to help her get there. And it required much prayer and gratitude. And to this day, we're friends, and we saw miracles happen. So transformational for me, and I know for all of us. We've all had our own experiences.
Thank you for sharing.
Dave, my brother, actually went back on another trip and ended up in Kyiv and stayed at the temple housing. So, Dave, your experience visiting Kyiv and Chernihiv.
It was a completely different type of trip. I mean, that trip we went over and actually our goal, our purpose was to try to get supplies to people who just desperately needed medical supplies and food and different things like that. We actually made it up to Chernihiv, which is just north of Kyiv, one of the hardest hit cities I think at the beginning of the conflict, and just to see the devastation and seeing the aftermath, I guess, after the initial invasion, and just imagining what the Ukrainians had gone through and endured and
continue to
survived and continue to do the best that they can. Was just it was eye-opening for me. I had friends that I went out with that actually, when we returned to Kyiv, they went down to Kharkiv, which was even closer to the conflict. And the resilience of the people that are out there, the locals, is just amazing. There's people that stayed behind, some by choice, some not by choice. But to see, the group of, Latter-day Saints in Kyiv, really come together and organize. And I saw much the same thing happening in Lviv as well. There's a remarkable group of saints in Lviv that organized and came together and were able to get quite a bit of supplies. Not only receive them, but get them out to different parts of the country. It's just remarkable to see that cooperation. And just see saints on the other side of the world, doing, I think, what sometimes saints do best, and that is, serve people. And for me, it was awe-inspiring. One other comment I guess I would make is, we all had wonderful experiences, heartbreaking experiences, life-changing experiences with a lot of refugees, and being able to do just a little bit to make their lives just a little bit better after they've been through so much. But something else that really stood out to me and that I found just absolutely remarkable and actually gave me faith, in humanity is the volunteers. It was just remarkable to see the world come together, and literally it was the world coming together. When we first got there, You didn't see any of the big NGOs. You didn't see the Red Cross or the UN or any of the other big relief organizations. It was just little small groups for the most part, coming from every corner of the world. And to see so many people come from so many backgrounds, so many different religions, creeds, cultures, colors. I mean, there were people there that represented all corners of the world, and we all worked together and got along. And that to me was something that was just absolutely remarkable. And like I said, it gave me faith in humanity, that we can come together no matter what our background is. And what brings us together is volunteer work and helping out our fellow man, that just finds themselves, in kind of a desperate measure. And that was one of the neatest things for me, is to actually see the volunteers, and being a part of that, a small part of that. And that for me was really neat.
That's amazing. Oh, what an inspiring, beautiful experience.
Unbelievable, really. Anything else?
I had Gary one day in my office, and we were talking about the experience in Ukraine, and I told him I was headed back. And you want to share your experience, Gary?
I think that was on a Tuesday. I asked Rob when we were leaving, and he said Friday. And so I scrambled and was on that plane on Friday, and with 3 days notice. But the we made on that trip, we made lots of trips back and forth, and we had 9 passenger vans. We could take 7 refugees with us each trip, and we'd go over to the border and where they had been crossing. And at the point in time we were there in March, there had already been around 4.5 million Ukrainians leave the country and coming through various places where the refugees were being welcomed, not only in Poland, but Romania and other countries. We went to 2 of those refugee camps. The one in particular was an old shopping mall that had been abandoned and was empty, but they converted it to a refugee camp. And basically it was wall-to-wall cots, so that the people that were coming in, which were primarily women and children and a few elderly people, and they gave them a place to sleep, and they gave them a meal or two, and then the goal was to get them on to a location where they could be cared for and be housed for whatever period of time. And one thing that I was really impressed with was how accommodating the Polish people were. The Polish people were offering a place in their home to total strangers from another country, and they would just stay how long. Some of them said they could stay indefinitely. Some of them said, hey, you could stay 2 or 3 months. There were a lot of different places available for these refugees to go, and we would transport them in the vans that we had rented and drop them at various places. Sometimes we were dropping them at train stations so that they could go on via the rail transportation that was made available by the Polish government. Sometimes we would drop them at houses that were being offered for people to stay in. And sometimes they were taking them to other countries where they had friends or relatives or acquaintances where they could go. But the biggest impact was, after we would, it took a little bit to gain their trust when we would pick them up, because here we were, total strangers, trying to tell them that, we had a van available, that we could take them where they needed to go. And it took a little bit of convincing, with the help of several of the people who were working at the refugee camps, and telling them that we were good guys, that we were there to serve and help. And once we gained their trust and their confidence, we would transport them to where they would go. And through an interpreter that was with us, we would have some conversation along the way and get to know them. And the big reward at the end of the trip were the hugs that you would get, the cheerful hugs that total strangers would just put their arms around you and thank you from the bottom of their heart for helping them and assisting them in this travel that was forced upon them through the war. And that was just utterly life-changing.
It's amazing that in 3 to 6 hours, you went from absolute strangers to family.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, wow. So beautiful.
So beautiful. I know heaven is cheering you on too in these adventures
So
and
are all
these
of
situations.
those we know.
Yes. Yes. And you've given everyone an opportunity to help. What is your biggest need as far as the work there in Ukraine, for Ukraine?
Well, right now, it continues to be food and medical supplies. And now that we're going into fall and we're going to get into the winter months, I think that the biggest concerns that we have going forward right now is keeping these people fed and warm. There are folks that, as Dave went back to Chernihiv, he saw folks who were living in root cellars and makeshift homes. And so the concern is supporting, and we've gotten involved in a handful of projects that have taken old museums and old schools and converted them into, places where these folks are able to go and stay so that they can stay and be warm. And that's it. Just a lot of good people who have wanted to get involved and, been able to facilitate several projects that have allowed those things to happen. So it's just been a neat experience to see, really to see the hand of the Lord directing the work. It just continued to snowball. The trip that Gary was on, I think when we did that first interview back in Poland, we mentioned about the two ladies that we had brought out from Lviv, that I think we showed the picture of the two of them sitting in the back of the van. And it happened to be that the young gal mentioned as we were driving along that her brother lived in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I ended up, while we were driving out of Ukraine, calling him on the phone and having a conversation with him.
Oh,
Pretty emotional conversation. And he just asked, what can I do? What do I owe you? And he ended up a couple weeks later going back on the same trip with Gary and myself and a fellow by the name of Sean Robinson. And he was our interpreter because he was Ukrainian and spoke the language. But, through him, we've been able to facilitate. In fact, it's his brother-in-law that drives the semi-truck back and forth from Poland into Ukraine. And it's through his brother-in-law we're facilitating a lot of cleanup effort. He's got a dump truck and a backhoe that we have available that we're able to facilitate cleanup efforts in Chernihiv, where neighbors and friends are getting together and cleaning out these bombed out areas. And then we're able to come in with the backhoe and the dump truck and help clean up in those areas.
Oh,
amazing.
it is incredible. Oh my goodness. And you've allowed everyone to be a part of that by being able to contribute, because it is an expensive endeavor that you are doing there.
Yes, and that in that video there, the fuel truck that you see, we actually sent over $46,000 to take in a full semi tanker full of fuel to keep these vehicles driving. Not only the semi truck, but the vans that come and get loaded up every day. And that fuel will last, 4, 5, 6 weeks, and then we need, another tanker to keep that going. So of course we're always looking for folks who want to get involved. And the beautiful thing is it's a small organization to where 100% of the donation goes to help the cause.
Yeah.
Any of these projects or efforts that we do, it's we come as volunteers on our own dime. So It's just a
incredible.
great opportunity to give directly to the cause.
How do we even express gratitude for that?
And if that's not enough, now you're in Africa doing another project.
Yeah.
And we
Now,
actually
now we're in Africa.
Tell-
These
tell us
trips
about Africa.
actually, yeah, Africa was scheduled before the conflict in Ukraine. We had a project here in northern Tanzania, north of the Serengeti, and this was on the schedule. We came over to build the boys' dormitory. There's the current dormitory they live in is they've got 135 boys living in a small bunkhouse that they share. Each bed has 2, 3, 4 boys sharing that bed. And so we came over to help with a project to help build a new dormitory for those boys. And this was actually on the schedule and planned, and then Ukraine happened. And so we helped facilitate things in Ukraine, and then had to come back and start focusing efforts on the trips to Africa so that we could get these done. So over the last couple months, we've had a couple of trips to come and help, and that's the boys' dormitory there in the background. So that's what's being built to help house those 135 boys.
Wow.
Oh, that's amazing. Look at that. I don't know if that's, there we go.
Actually a classroom that we came over in December and built. My father, Gene Sturgill, he actually made a donation to help build that classroom. So that's the Eugene H. Sturgill classroom that's in Ololosquan village in Tanzania. So just a
Wow.
great,
Wonderful.
my dad
Oh,
and his love helping to give back.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Incredible. And you've worked in the Philippines also, right?
Yeah,
Then
so
that's
we
like you said,
still
started
have
there.
work and effort in the Philippines. We do that through the Rise and Rebuild organization, and then also we do dental work in the Philippines. So as schedules go, we may have a dental mission that we're doing in November in the Philippines, where we take over a handful of dentists and then have local dentists. And we actually, a lot of times, will be in the steakhouse right next to the temple in Cebu and spend the week, one, helping missionaries get ready for their missions by doing their dental work, but then also helping the local community with cleaning teeth and doing reconstruction and anything that needs to be done to help them to be able to be out of pain, but also improve their lives.
That's so remarkable.
It
Oh, my
is
goodness.
remarkable. Thank you. Thank you. Is there anything else in closing that you would like to share with us? Any stories, any some motivation to all of us out here who are just wanting to help and not knowing how except to contribute. And we just love to hear where those contributions are going and what's happening. So anything else you want to share with us?
Yeah, I would just say that when it comes to, I think there's a lot of people out there that want to get involved, want to help out, want to donate. And so, we try to facilitate that by giving them the opportunity to make a donation and see exactly where it goes immediately, instead of sending it to maybe a larger NGO that you may not know exactly how those funds are being used.
Exactly.
And so I think that's something we've been able to show. And I think, as you know, we've got on the Facebook page, the Type of Food Facebook page, we keep that updated with all the different projects and activities that are going on that are being facilitated by donations.
Yes, we appreciate that so much. It's just amazing. And the video that we showed parts of earlier is on your Facebook page, and they can find that there on your personal one. And we just encourage everybody to get involved in any way that you can. And, like we said, we don't even know how to express gratitude for putting your lives on the line and going and serving just as the Savior would,
In fact, he said, when you've done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me. we have no doubt that he's receiving it as that kind of a remarkable gift. And we are also touched and grateful, and you're true heroes for sure.
You are. And thank you.
And your families too.
Yes, please thank your families for us and so many others.
Well, and I think we all realize that you don't have to go to Ukraine. You don't have to go to the Philippines or Africa. We can do it right in our neighborhoods and in our homes. And I guess the one thing that I would end with is you feel that prompting, you follow that prompting. And that's what led us to the Philippines. And that's what's led us to Ukraine. And just following those promptings to go and to do have been a great blessing in our lives to be on the Lord's errand. And I can bear testimony of that clearly because it's happened to me on several occasions where the Lord has said, go and do. And as we've done it, we've felt his hand in the work all the way along.
Perfect counsel.
Yes, absolutely. Any other words before we leave you in Africa over there?
As they would say in Africa, we would say in Swahili, Asante sana. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and please share this with others. What a remarkable story.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having us.